Politically correct language, here we go again. Hey guys, I recently came across this video by Metatron, and as someone whose background is in linguistics, I wanted to add my 2 cents to the conversation about politically correct language. In this case, we are talking about politically correct language for the students at the University of Waterloo, Canada. So on their website, they have a page called Race and Ethnicity Terminology, where they have a list of words that students should avoid when writing essays, papers, basically written works. I just want to give you some background really quick. If you want to skip that, go to this timestamp. But my background, as I said, is in the field of linguistics, and I'm coming at this from a European angle. I've never been to Canada, I've never been to America or any English-speaking country, but I do on the daily interact on the internet with predominantly American, but English content, as most of us do. As I said, my background is in linguistics. I have a master's in English and a bachelor's in German, and my studies focused on both the language aspect, grammar, syntax, and so on, but also on the literature. So I would say I have a rather broad knowledge, but no narrow focus on any specific single topic. That said, I'm well aware of the current socio-political climate atmosphere in the English-speaking world when it comes to politically correct language, self-censorship, censorship, and so on. Needless to say, I find this pretty unsettling, especially when it comes to censorship in environments such as universities, colleges, schools, which are environments that are supposed to encourage free thinking and expression. But nonetheless, here we are. So let's look at this website and look at the chart and see what words they suggest, this university suggests students, don't use and what they should use instead. Language can be a powerful tool that can be used to empower, motivate, and inspire us. Language can also offend us or perpetuate harms. I agree. Language is powerful. Being able to communicate with someone opens up so many possibilities to create, inspire, work together. But yes, it can also offend and create a rift between people. Of course, the big question is, how can we successfully determine what is or should be considered offensive? Because something offensive to me might not be offensive to you, and vice versa. So how can we successfully unite on what is offensive and what isn't? How can we even successfully regulate language and expression? At universities, sure, you can say, these are the words that you can't use in your paper, or you shall not pass. Fine. Well, not fine, but that's an example of where you can regulate to a degree how people express themselves. But how do you apply that to everyday life, to the real world? And what happens when the list of forbidden words expands and those that once created the list find themselves using words that they shouldn't be? Censoring language is only a stone's throw away from censoring thought. And someone trying to censor our thoughts, that should concern us all. Okay, but now let's look at this university's chart. I'll go over the list in a mixed way, because there are admittedly a couple of words here that are definitely more archaic, not so much in use anymore, and yeah, it makes sense that you wouldn't want to be using those. Some of these words you would find only in older literature, or primarily in older literature. And frankly, I don't think most students would even gravitate towards those in the first place. Maybe a student whose first language is not English and they hear that word somewhere and they think it's fine to use. But native English speakers, I mean, some of you, a lot of you are native English speakers, my subscribers, so let me know. Let me know what you think. But of course, we get to some more interesting examples. The chart tells us that we shouldn't be using the word Caucasian. I frankly don't know why this word is here. Okay, maybe it's because they want these two counterparts, white people and black people, but notice how Caucasian is capitalized because it refers to a geographic location, the Caucasus, right? The people from the Caucasus, from this area. So by default, it has to be capitalized. But clearly they don't want W in white people to be capitalized, but they want B in black people to be capitalized. So maybe they just want a word that is not capitalized and means white people? You think that's a bit of a stretch? I think it might be, but nowadays you never know. The craziest things turn out to be true in this timeline, so that might just be one of them. Minority is also on the avoid list. The only explanation I can find for this is that maybe they're trying to say that minority implies something minor, something inferior, and therefore equity-deserving groups should not be referred to as minor or inferior. This reminds me, just a quick aside on the synonyms. Notice how many synonyms we're losing in this chart, because they are the avoid words, we can't use them. But synonyms are such wonderful words because they allow us to enrich our written or spoken expression. They allow us to not repeat ourselves constantly. But this chart narrows down the possibility of one's expression so much. But I guess there is a silver lining here, because even though they're limiting expression and reducing synonyms, they are clearly encouraging students to increase their word count. Because who on earth is gonna say equity-deserving groups? Enslaved people, international person. Come on. In a world where younger generations can't even be bothered to use the full word for charisma, we humans like to economize. We naturally gravitate towards brevity. Now more than ever. To me, being referred to as a foreign person sounds much more alienating. Foreigner is literally one of the most neutral words there are. Developed or developing countries. Look, we describe things, concepts, people, always in relation to our point of view, in relation to our position. So from the Western perspective, the term developing countries emerged to describe countries that are economically not so well off or socially not so well off. I see how people arrive to the conclusion that that could be derogatory, or you're looking down on someone if you say that they're from a third world country. At the same time, there's this fake virtue signaling connected to this politically correct new language. Oh, we won't call you anything inferior, that would be mean. We'll just call you a totally different word that blurs what we're trying to say and actually doesn't really change anything about the reality of things. Look, I'm from Central/Southern Europe, and we often get lumped in with the Balkan region. And if you know anything about the Balkan region, you'll know that this area typically gets stereotyped as, it's people being primitive or simple. I can't change the stereotypes. Some of them might be true, but they don't define me or my people or other people's. Similarly, if somebody is from what we would refer to as a developing country, that doesn't automatically mean that they are X, Y, and Z. Avoid colloquial or derogatory terms for peoples. Sure, this one makes sense, but I also think that people who made it to the university level of education wouldn't write these things in their paper. First of all, because it's informal and substandard, but yes, also because these words are inappropriate, especially in academic context. We actually have more words and phrases to avoid down here, and some of these actually explain a couple of examples from the chart, why those words are on the avoid list. They do explain why they put Caucasian on the list. It's apparently too broad, and its definition doesn't include, or can include some non-white peoples as well. Therefore, it's not a suitable synonym for white or white people. Foreign is an acceptable word when used to describe policies, but referring to a person as foreign or foreigner leaves a bad taste. Anyone called by that term is automatically labeled as other, something that doesn't belong. Well, it is meant to convey that someone is not native to a particular country or area. We can't all belong to all groups at all times. And just because we don't doesn't make us less worthy or inferior. Honestly, the mindset that is being pushed here is, let me tell you about this word that was completely neutral up to this point. Did you know that there are hidden meanings to this word and it's actually derogatory? Now you know, now you're enlightened, you're welcome. Now go claim oppression because you don't belong to all groups at all times. But then there's more. There's always more. There's also a best practices guideline if you click on this link here, and I want to share with you some gems from this list. Avoid assumptions. It should not be taken for granted that a Muslim ceremony needs explanation, while a Roman Catholic Mass does not. Never assume your readers share your background. Watch the labels. Calling some fruit exotic might make sense to someone raised in rural Saskatchewan, but would not ring true to many foreign-born readers in Toronto who grew up eating it for breakfast. So, we can use foreign-born, but not foreigner. This is so confusing. I agree on the point that you should probably at least broadly describe a concept that you're writing about, no matter what it is, no matter how familiar or foreign to your target audience it may be. And yeah, it's not the best thing to assume that your readers share your background, but your background is your background and you're writing from your point of view, and that should be considered as well. If you are a student from Canada, studying at a Canadian university, fruits such as passion fruit and papaya are going to be considered exotic from your perspective because you're talking about things from a Canadian perspective. There's nothing wrong with that. And here's the last one that I'm going to share with you, but this one made me laugh out loud. This one is in regards to minority that we had earlier. The word minority is often used to describe groups of people who are not part of the majority. The term is being phased out because it may imply inferiority and because minorities often are not in the numerical minority. What is this sentence or these two sentences? Yes, a minority is called a minority because it implies a small part, the opposite of majority, something that doesn't imply the larger part, but the smaller part of the whole. Minorities are often not in the numerical minority. Okay, maybe because they once were, but they aren't anymore, but then, yeah, you're not gonna call it a minority. If it's a minority, it's gonna be a numerical minority. Is it not? What am I missing here? Let me know, guys. This doesn't make much sense. If it does to you, enlighten me, okay? Let me know down in the comments below. And on this note, I'm gonna wrap this video up. Thank you very much for watching. You know how interesting these linguistic topics and politically correct language topics are to me. I hope they are to you as well. So yes, leave a like and a comment down below. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you very soon in another video. And until then, take care. Bye, guys.